Hi, welcome to my journey through one of the most iconic albums in music history, Abbey Road by the Beatles, released 1969. Now, Abbey Road marked a culmination of an era for the Fab Four and remains a timeless masterpiece cherished by music lovers the world over. But before delving into Abbey Road, let's rewind a bit and understand the backdrop against which the album emerged. Now, the Beatles' preceding album, Let It Be, faced numerous challenges and controversies during its production. There was infighting among the band members, creative differences, tensions, and even a walkout. And it led to a tumultuous recording process, ending in a rather strained atmosphere. Despite the challenges and the perceived fiasco of Let It Be, the Beatles were determined to end their career on a high note, and so they set out to create one final album that would showcase their musical expertise and unity as a band. By the time the Beatles were working on Abbey Road, it was widely known within the band and among their inner circle that they were on the verge of breaking up. Now, the tensions and conflicts within the group had reached a boiling point during the recording of Let It Be, and additionally, each member of the band was already pursuing individual projects and interests, which further signalled the imminent end of their collaboration as the Beatles. So the decision to name the album Abbey Road and feature the iconic photo of the band walking across the zebra crossing outside the studios served as a symbolic gesture, reinforcing the idea that this album marked the end of an era for the Beatles. In hindsight, Abbey Road is widely regarded as the Beatles' swan song, a masterpiece that encapsulates the essence of their musical journey and serves as a timeless testament to their unparalleled creativity and innovation. Recognizing the significance of this final endeavour, the Beatles sought the guidance of their longtime producer, George Martin. His return to the studio brought a sense of familiarity and stability, enabling the band to focus on the music without the distractions that plagued their previous recording sessions. There's an interesting anecdote regarding Paul McCartney's initial approach to George Martin about producing the album. According to various accounts, including George Martin's own memoir, McCartney reached out to Martin with the intention of having him produce the album. Paul reportedly called George, expressing the band's desire to make another album. Martin, however, was initially hesitant due to the tensions that had arisen during the recording of Let It Be and the strained relationship between the band members. He wanted assurance that if they were going to work together again, it would be under his conditions. Martin's reply, which is often paraphrased, goes along the lines of him saying that he would agree only to produce the album if they let him produce it as he saw fit, implying that he wanted a more structured and disciplined approach to the recording process. This dialogue captures the mutual respect between McCartney and Martin, as well as Martin's insistence on maintaining control over the production to ensure a smoother and more successful outcome. Now, it's interesting to note that the McCartney-Martin combination would spill over into McCartney's solo years, where George Martin would have a hand in the production of numerous McCartney solo albums. Abbey Road not only featured the brilliance of the Beatles, but also welcomed notable contributions from other musicians and production team members. Billy Preston was a notable contributor, providing keyboards and organ on numerous songs. George Martin, of course, played a crucial role in arranging and conducting orchestral elements on several tracks. Mal Evans, who we know is the Beatles' trusted road manager, made a cameo appearance on the album, contributing to the hammer to anvil on Maxwell's Silver Hammer.
Clang, clang, Maxwell's silver hammer made sure that she was dead.
There was Chris Thomas, and although he's uncredited, Chris Thomas was an engineer and producer who played a significant role in assistant engineering during the Abbey Road recording sessions, contributing to the overall production quality of the album. Chris had previously worked with the Beatles on the White Album, playing the harpsichord on Piggies, the mellotron on The Continuing Story of Bungalow Bill, and the piano on Long, Long, Long and Savoy Truffle, and actually produced the songs Birthday and Happiness is a Warm Gun. There was Alan Parsons. One of Alan Parsons' big breakthroughs was also working as an assistant engineer on Abbey Road. Now, I got this little snippet from abbeyroad.com website. On the very last day of the recording at Abbey Road Studios, Alan remembers watching from the steps as they walked out onto the crossing and captured the iconic photo for the album cover. That same day, we actually assembled the album. While listening to the final mix of She's So Heavy, John Lennon, wearing that same white suit, came up and said, "Let's not fade out. Let's just cut the tape. Do it there." And with a pair of scissors, snip. Despite their commitment to delivering a masterpiece, tensions among the band members still simmered beneath the surface. However, the collective desire to create something extraordinary ultimately overshadowed any personal discord, allowing the Beatles to channel their energies into the music. The conflicts during the recording of Abbey Road were multifaceted and stemmed from various sources, including personal differences, creative disagreements, and the overarching strain on the band's dynamic as they faced the inevitable end of their collaboration. While the specifics of the conflicts aren't always detailed in public records, there were several notable incidents and tensions that occurred during this period. One significant event was John Lennon's car accident in Scotland, which impacted the recording sessions for the album. On July the 1st, 1969, Lennon crashed his car while driving in Scotland with Yoko and their children Julian and Kyoko. You can see my video up here. The incident resulted in Lennon suffering facial injuries, and he was hospitalised for several days. As a result, John missed the initial weeks of the recording sessions for Abbey Road, delaying the progress of the album. While John's absence may have alleviated some tensions temporarily, the underlying conflicts within the band persisted, and these conflicts were worsened by factors such as creative differences over musical direction, frustrations with the recording process, think Maxwell's Silver Hammer, and looming uncertainty, obviously, surrounding the band's future. But despite these challenges, the Beatles managed to set aside their differences and come together, excuse the pun, to create Abbey Road, showcasing their remarkable ability to channel their individual talents and collective creativity into a cohesive and enduring work of art. Abbey Road boasted several standout tracks that have become classics in their own right, from the iconic guitar riffs of Come Together to the haunting melodies of Something. Each song on the album showcased the Beatles' unparalleled songwriting prowess and musical innovation. Other notable hits include Here Comes the Sun and the legendary medley that closes the album on side 2. Come Together and Something. Now, these two songs were released as a double A-side in October 1969. Something became the Beatles' first #1 single that was not a Lennon and McCartney composition. Come Together, written by John, also achieved commercial success, reaching high chart positions globally. Although not released as a single at the time of the album's release, George Harrison's Here Comes the Sun has become one of the most beloved tracks from the album and a staple of the Beatles' catalogue. The medley on side 2 of the album is one of the most iconic features, seamlessly weaving together several distinct song fragments into a cohesive and mesmerising musical journey. You Never Give Me Your Money by Paul. The song was written during the troubled recording sessions of Let It Be. and reflects Paul's frustration with the band's financial and interpersonal issues. Sun King, written by John, Paul and George, features a dreamy atmospheric vibe with lyrics inspired by wordplay and phrases in multiple languages, but I think some of them are made up. What's the one I'm thinking? Questo, abrigado, tanto mucho, cake and eat it, carousel. Which I think says, I'm so humbled that cake and eat it, carousel. Mean Mr. Mustard by John is a short, quirky track which introduces the character named Mr. Mustard and is followed immediately by the next segment, Polythene Pam, which features upbeat rock and roll vibes and playful lyrics. She Came In Through the Bathroom Window by Paul tells the story of a fan who breaks into his house and is based on a real life incident. And finally, the medley within the medley, Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight and The End. Written by Paul with contributions from John on Carry That Weight. These three songs form the climactic conclusion of the medley, and the album as a whole featuring lush orchestration, powerful vocal harmonies, memorable guitar solos. The decision to sequence these songs together creates a sense of grandeur and closure, culminating in an epic finale that showcases each band member's musical prowess, including Ringo Starr's drum solo. Now, this brief but impactful drum solo marks the only time that Ringo performed a drum solo on a Beatles recording. The guitar solos featured at the end show us each member's distinctive playing style. John thought up the idea of all Beatles taking solos. Paul played first, followed by George, and then John, and they repeated this sequence 3 times over a total of 9 separate solos. Overall, the medley on the Abbey Road album represents a masterful example of the Beatles' songwriting and arrangement skills, with each segment contributing to the album's cohesive and immersive listening experience. Now I want to talk about Her Majesty. It's an interesting addition to the Abbey Road album, which was initially intended to be part of the medley, but ultimately excluded and then reinstated in a unique way. And here's the story behind the hidden track. Paul wrote Her Majesty and was initially conceived as part of the medley following Mean Mr. Mustard. However, during the editing process, the decision was made to remove it from the sequence. The band felt that the song disrupted the flow of the medley, and they ultimately decided to exclude it from the final track listing. But had it been included where it was intended to be, between Mr. Mustard and Polythene Pam, it might have transitioned like this.
Daddy, old man. Majesty's pretty.
And having then ended the song into Polythene Pam like this.
Someday I'm gonna make a mine.
It was removed from the medley due to pacing concerns, but it was then reinstated as a hidden track at the end of the album. Despite being cut from the medley, it was not discarded entirely. Instead, it was moved to the end of the album, following a period of silence after the conclusion of the song at the end. And this placement as a hidden track was reportedly a result of an editing mistake by the Abbey Road engineer John Kurlander. After the end concludes, there's a few seconds of silence before Her Majesty abruptly begins. This unexpected transition caught the listener off guard when they first released the album, leading to speculation about whether it was intentionally placed there or if it was a mistake. However, Paul reportedly liked the surprise effect and decided to keep it in on the final version of the album. So despite its unconventional placement, Her Majesty has become a beloved part of the Abbey Road album and is often regarded as one of the first hidden tracks in popular music. In the UK, from the 60s up to the 90s, I think, the BBC would end their day's broadcasting by playing the national anthem, a bit like this.
So now as we head towards 1:15, let me remind you that although BBC One is closing down, our colleagues on BBC Radios 1 and 2 will continue to entertain well into the early hours.
Now, I've often wondered, could it be possible that on Abbey Road, the song Her Majesty could be likened to the playing of the national anthem at the end of the broadcast? You know, the broadcast of the album. I might be clutching at straws here, but there's no explicit evidence to suggest that Her Majesty was intended to mimic the tradition of playing the national anthem. But I don't think my comparison is entirely far-fetched. The placement of Her Majesty as a hidden track at the end of the album does create a similar sense of finality and closure, similar to the conclusion of the broadcasting day with the national anthem. The abrupt transition from the solemn conclusion of the end to the light-hearted and playful Her Majesty could be seen as a deliberate nod to the unexpectedness of the national anthem playing at the end of a television broadcast. That's all I'm saying. I'm putting it out there. Let me be the first. While it may not have been the primary intention behind the placement, the effects of Her Majesty as a hidden track does evoke a sense of tradition, much like playing the national anthem. The album cover is one of the most iconic and recognisable album covers in music history. It was photographed by Ian Macmillan, a Scottish photographer who was commissioned by Apple Records. Now, Macmillan was tasked with capturing a simple and striking image of the Beatles walking across a zebra crossing outside Abbey Road. The photo shoot lasted about 10 minutes and resulted in several images of the band members walking in various formations across the road, backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards. Macmillan stood on a stepladder in the middle of the road to capture the iconic shot. Before the photo shoot, Paul had sketched a rough idea of how he envisioned the album cover, and the sketch depicted the four Beatles walking across the crossing, with each member's position and spacing carefully planned out. Now, there are conspiracy theories. I don't want to delve too much into it, but in the years following the release of the album, various conspiracy theories emerged regarding Paul McCartney's supposed death. Some fans and conspiracy theorists claim that clues hinting to McCartney's death were hidden in the album cover image and lyrics. These alleged clues included interpretations of the album cover such as McCartney's being barefoot and out of step with the other Beatles, and the presence of the Volkswagen Beetle with the license plate 281F or 28if, which is said to represent McCartney's age if he had lived. However, these conspiracy theories have been wildly debunked. McCartney himself has dismissed them as unfounded rumours. The Abbey Road album cover was simply a creative and visual striking image intended to represent the Beatles' final studio album together. The cover is a timeless and iconic image and synonymous with the Beatles' legacy. It's pop art and it's been imitated many times. It's evident that the album stands as a testament to the Beatles' enduring legacy. Despite the challenges they faced, the band's unwavering commitment to their craft shines through in every note, making Abbey Road an immortal masterpiece that continues to captivate old and new audiences across all generations. Okay, that was it. Just a quick one on the kind of diving into the Abbey Road album. Feel free to drop me a comment and let's engage with one another. I'll see you in another video. Bye for now.
So now as we head towards 1:15, let me remind you that although BBC One is closing down, our colleagues on BBC Radios 1 and 2 will continue to entertain well into the early hours.
Majesty's a pretty nice girl. Someday I'm gonna make her mine. Oh yeah, someday I'm gonna make her mine.